The Cleveland Browns are now through 2 preseason games, and we've gotten to the point now where we've gotten enough here through 2 games of tape here. We can start evaluating some players. Obviously, the starters haven't played much, but we'll get to, the backups, the rookies, of course, and the best way to do that is with PFF's John Kosko. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. We are joined by John Kosko from PFF. You guys should be too unfamiliar. This has been going on for a long, long time. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Join the everyday crowd, now over 6,300 strong on YouTube. So subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Locked On Browns, of course, always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. John, we're going to break it down here, and as everybody can see, the list here, we're going to do a little offense. We're going to do some defense here, get your thoughts here now that we've actually gotten to see this car on the road here a little bit. But, John, I got to think if we're talking about the Browns offense here, and again, guys, look, listeners, I get it. We just don't have a lot to talk about the starters, so that'll pick up as the weeks go on. But, John, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, this has probably been the story here. And I even remember when they were still down in West Virginia, and it was maybe the first day, it was like, a couple days in, hey, Dorian Thompson-Robinson finally got an extended look today. And ever since then, the reviews have been positive. I go back to the Hall of Fame game, 2 things that stuck out to me. One was the tiptoe on the sideline, got his body right, and still continued forward, probably picked up about 10 more yards. The second one was the Felton touchdown run, carried out his fake, and by carrying out his fake, having the wherewithal to realize, oh, my guy's bouncing it out. Oh, wait a minute. I'm the clearing block. And you just show that's football intelligence. And, a lot of times when we get a 21-year-old rookie who maybe started a year and a half in college, you don't see those things. DTR's played a boatload of college football at UCLA, and I think you're starting to see that translate really, really quickly with this guy.
Yeah, you think about it, he was under Chip Kelly at UCLA, and so he got used to like a unique style of offense there that really, doesn't translate all that well to the NFL. So you're basically kind of taking a guy that's an athlete that can throw the football pretty well. But when you have experience at the college level like he's had, that bodes well. And through 2 games, and obviously this is preseason, how much does it really matter? But like his grade through 2 games is a 90.2. He's doing all the right things that you need the quarterback to do. He's orchestrating the offense. He's leading them to scores. A lot of times you get backups in there and they might have like a pretty solid PFF grade, but it's not leading to scores or stuff like that. But both of them are combining together. So, yeah, like you said, with the wherewithal to make that block, I'm carrying out the fake and doing the little things right, kind of goes a long way to having a successful offense. And he's not going to start this year. Obviously, we know that, but I think it bodes well for developing young talent. And you never know when you'll need a guy like that come the season, and maybe you get an injury in the playoffs. You've seen Patrick Mahomes get injured multiple years in a row now and have to miss a game or so here or there. Even against the Browns, they had to bring in Chad Henne. So I think you want a guy that, you don't want to have to rely on that, but if you need him in a pinch, he's showing that he can deliver when it, at least right now in the preseason.
3 touchdown drives to this point for Dorian Thompson-Robinson through two games. Certainly playing the best rookie quarterback football right now in the preseason. But again, this is all well and good, and I keep pushing. He should be the number 2 quarterback narrative. But at the end of the day, the old obviously Tom Moorline. Nobody wants to see the number 2 quarterback. Let's just hope nobody wants to see the number 2 quarterback. Moving on here, John. And even as I've been doing the last couple episodes, it's crazy to even bring up this name because for me, and the Jerome Ford injury helped. The Browns don't carry a fullback, so you go 4 deep at the running back position. And when you have a guy that's got crazy versatility, whether it's a guy who can tote the rock, whether it's a guy who can do some return stuff, whether it's a guy that can actually go play slot wide receiver if you need to. And I know you have a point you want to bring to this. But all of a sudden here, Demetric Felton is in this weird spot where I have more confidence in Dimitri Felton making the roster this year than I did last year. Last year obviously it was Kareem Hunt. It was obviously Dearness Johnson, guys who had experience, had played well and had been given more of an opportunity. But all of a sudden, here's Dimitri Felton now, and he's another one like Cedric Tillman who's got a relationship with DTR. So there are always some things you can kind of play off of with that. But all of a sudden, here we are now, Demetric Felton. This could maybe be his best year in Cleveland. Some of it could be the injury to Jerome Ford, but some of it could be the change in this offense where you're just trying to, find ways to get athletes the ball in space. And all of a sudden that might be something that lines up a little bit better than what Demetric Felton could give you.
Yeah. You think about it. This is a guy who was a 6th-round pick back in 2021. So like, how much can you really expect from a guy like that? But, he's making the most of his own right now. And yeah, like, I said before the show that his pass protection grade in this preseason is like 11.2 or something, but that's not what you're going to ask this guy to do. You're going to give him the ball in space. And he's essentially playing the Elijah Moore role if Elijah Moore has to miss some time or something like that. And really, this is a guy, he's not as explosive as Elijah Moore. He can't run the routes that he does as well or anything like that. But he's a guy that you can, get the ball in space and make some things happen. We saw some flashes as a rookie. He had the one screen pass that he took to the house, broke a couple of tackles, about a 20-yard, 25. Yep. And that was, hey, this guy can be something. But, obviously you got to pump the brakes and stuff like that. I think he's a guy that, like, if they need him, he's making the most of his opportunities right now. Obviously it's just, the Hall of Fame game in this preseason game against the Commanders or whatever. He has a touchdown in the Hall of Fame game that, we talked about earlier. So with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that was, made the block there. But he's just making the most of his own. And if he can continue to ride that momentum, he's a guy that's probably going to make the roster again. He was a guy that at the combine, he tested really poorly, but he looks faster than what those combine numbers show. If he can put some things together, and he's not going to be a guy that you're starting on your fantasy team, but he's a guy that you can get the ball a couple times a game and maybe make the move the chains a couple times.
We have to go here. And when the Browns made this selection, the thought process was with Dawand Jones is, can he get in his head? And, and we've seen some great still shots of obviously him with Bill Callahan and, all the memes that come along with it. And for me with Bill Callahan, looking at his eyes is, son, do you want to make $50 million? Because if you just shut up and listen to me, I can probably get you to $50 million. But Dawand Jones through 2 games, and we'll see, I keep thinking we're going to see him kick to the other side to see if maybe he can do that as well, because they're in their weird situation. You gave Jack Conklin the extension. Yes, you picked up the 5th-year option on Jedrick Wills. But if you could find a way to save some money there, because now money is, a lot of guys are on bigger contracts here. But you're going to be in a weird situation here where if he puts this together for the rest of the summer, granted, they already have a great offensive line, but you've got an eye on a guy who could be a part of the future and continuing this offensive line success.
Yeah, think about Jed Wills too. So I know Jed Wills has a 52.8 grade in his last game or whatever. Like the guy just doesn't show up in my eyes, and in PFF's eyes, obviously the guy he's just not consistent enough. When you look at Dawand Jones, he's given up one pressure and was beaten another time. That's it. This preseason at over about almost 80.
And a lot of people want to poo-poo on this, but the Jet game, he was facing 2 first-round picks. He was facing legit talent.
Yeah, and he's excelling. Like I don't know what you want more from the guy, but like you're talking about not giving up a single pressure in the Hall of Fame game on 40 pass protection snaps, 1 hurry in this last game, against Commanders. What more do you want to ask from a rookie in the preseason? He's doing exactly what you want to do. His run game work, and he could use work there. Moving a body like that there's gonna be some issues there, but like he's light on his feet when it's talking about in pass protection, and you want to keep Deshaun Watson upright. I mean, he's showing that he can do that at this level, and obviously it's preseason again. But I don't want to keep making that caveat, but he's showing everything that you want to see. We at PFF had him as a first round grade on the guy, and obviously the off field stuff that all those rumors are the reason why he dropped. But if he gets his head right and he wants to show what he can do, I mean that's awesome for the Browns because they got it, in our opinion, got a steal in the 4th round.
You got an absolute monster of a human being, and slow feet don't eat. And if there's one thing about this guy at his size, it ain't slow feet. We're going to switch it up here. We're going to talk some defensive guys here over the first 2 Browns preseason games. PFF's John Kosko's back in the house. You can tell I'm a little excited. I like when we can get John here because we need John here when we actually have ball to talk about, and we do now. So everybody come on, stick around on your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate you all for being along for the ride. August is here, and you know what that means. The official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you need to do is 1 live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back, and even bigger, with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July, so don't wait around. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with the promo code LOCKEDON to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKED ON.
Got a little cool graphic going on there when you got an ad now. I like it.
All the bells and whistles, Mr. Kosko. All the bells and whistles. Now, John, it obviously Shelby Harris and the signing of Shelby Harris here all of a sudden kind of changes things as far as the way this defensive tackle room, we wanted to talk Tristan Hill. Sadly, Tristan Hill's watching right now, just like the rest of us are. And then all the guys after, because you figure Ika's probably a lock. So you got Tomlinson, you got Harris, now you got Ika. But is there anything there yet? Is there anything improving? I think it was a little bit better with some of the activity this week. But obviously without, mentioning Dawand Tomlinson and nothing to talk about on Shelby Harris here yet, what are the takeaways on this defensive tackle room here? And again, we're going to talk about it, but it seems like this position is in a lot better spot than it was maybe say 3 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think next to Dawand Tomlinson, you had a lot of question marks, right? Like Jordan Elliott is not a guy that has shown anything in the NFL so far. We liked him at PFF, and it's looking like we missed on that guy, right? But nobody's ever perfect, right? I'll be the first to admit it. But I think with Shelby Harris, he's a guy that with obviously a long track record of success in the NFL. You look at his grades through his career. Last year he was just a 74.8, which is you talk about what the Browns defensive tackle room was last year. It was like guys were grading in the 40s, in the 30s, and
we were laughing, John. Who are we kidding? When we did this every Monday, we were literally laughing.
Yes, and now you're talking about all right, you're going to put Shelby Harris as your starting two tackles in there that you can rely on to stop the run and actually get some pressure on the quarterback. Shelby Harris is not known for his pass rushing prowess by any means, but he's a guy that's going to be reliable there. He's not going to be a sieve in the run game. And so this room just got significantly better. You don't have to worry, is Maurice Hurst going to be healthy, and can he hold up for 16 games or anything like that? Can he even be a viable option for them, right? You don't have to worry about that at this point right now. So like these guys that you had big time question marks on, now they're rotational pieces. So it makes this room just so much more complete, right? And there's no worries about Dawand Tomlinson. We all know what he can do. He's a guy that's been one of the most consistent defensive tackles in the NFL for the past decade. Shelby Harris has just been a step down from that. So I think, and it's still been very consistent. He had a 3-year stretch where he was graded as a 90, 76, 80, 88. So you're talking about a guy that can play the game at a high level. And he's just done it for a long time. So, I love this move because now, you're talking about a defensive line, last year outside of Myles Garrett was just I mean, it was like arguably the worst in the NFL. Myles Garrett was holding it up by a thread that with his ability to get after the quarterback. But now he's going to have 3 other guys in that defensive line that can help him out, and also rotate some guys in there as well. So this is huge.
Well, last year it was Myles Garrett and the Garrettettes. I mean, and your second leading sacker was Taven Bryant with 3 sacks. This is a vastly, vastly changed room here. But I do want to switch focus here and go to the linebacker unit. And whether it was week 1, whether it was week 2, week 1, 2.8 yards per carry. Last week, 4 yards per carry. And, wetter conditions. You got to be a little more safe with your footy. You got to play smarter. But, John, there were, in every, people playing limited. Jacob Phillips, obviously, 3 solo tackles. Tony Fields, 3 solo tackles. JOK, 3 solo tackles. The young kid from Georgia Tech, Thomas, 3 solo tackles. But, John, I am seeing linebackers run around as opposed to 8 yards down the field with 320-pound interior linemen crushing them into the ground. The system, the guys up front, the guys themselves, you're starting to see things that we haven't seen. And this is the way linebacker play is supposed to be. Keep the guys off of them, let them run around and make plays. And we're starting to see some dividends here quickly and early on from these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even, JOK was looking like his rookie self.
God. He would have had 17 tackles if he played that entire game Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, he was flying around the field too. And it's good to, it's just good to see that type of stuff where they can play more freely. Like obviously Tony Fields has, double-digit tackles on our numbers and everything, and he's just being able to fly around. Is he a guy that you're going to rely on a bunch in this season? No, not at the, not a significant number of snaps or anything by, whatever. But I think it's this, like what you said, the much improved defensive line, a different scheme that allows these guys to fly around. These guys can make plays now. And I think that's all you ask for. It allows them to play freely instead of questioning, do I need to, especially when it comes to the run game and, the play action game. So in the play action game, those linebackers have been taught for, a century of playing football that you stop the run first and then drop back the pass to cover the pass. Now they don't have to overly concern themselves so much with the run. They can play some of that pass first in more obvious passing situations. So they're not getting beat over the middle, and they can protect themselves that way because they know that defensive line is going to hold up for a little bit longer than just getting blown back into them. So it just all that just plays into a part where the linebackers can now play the position like it's supposed to look.
And, and guys, look, I didn't intend for this to be, a big Ohio State show. But reserve defensive backs here. Look at Ronnie Hickman, 2 interceptions. The second one was certainly more impressive than the first one. Cameron Mitchell, AJ Green, we don't know how long he's going to be out, but, AJ Green's been this undrafted player that's been here an extended amount of time. And maybe the Browns looking for some new blood because there's a whole bunch of other corners in here. Just some talk about these other defensive backs other than the top 3 at the cornerback unit, certainly the top 3 at the safety unit.
Yeah. So Ronnie Hickman, like you said, like the one interception was far more impressive than the other, but he's graded well so far this preseason. 66 snaps, 82.8. He's the second highest graded, Browns defender this year on defense. With Bubba Bolden being the highest graded one, he's only 36 snaps.
And he's now gone.
Yeah, and he's now gone, unfortunately. So he had a 92.4 grade in this preseason, which hurts there, but. D'Anthony Bell, he's another guy that has been okay so far this year, 69.3. But really, Cameron Mitchell, Northwestern guy, I like what he can bring to the table. He's 70.8 there. So guys that are these backups that you're going to see sparingly probably this season for sure, showing well in the preseason. I think when it comes to secondary play, it's kind of volatile and stuff like that. Like obviously with Ronnie Hickman's one interception, like you have to just get lucky and be in the right spot at the right time. Made the play, right? You did what you're supposed to do when you're gifted something like that. So they're doing their part in that regard. Like Cameron Mitchell, he's been targeted 4 times, giving up just 3 catches for 37 yards, but he has a pass breakup in there as well. So. Making a play, giving up some plays, but it is the ebbs and flows of that position. So I like what they can bring to the table. in that backup role for this year, because we know what the starters can do as long as these guys stay healthy. And obviously, if one of them gets hurt, I think they can come in and be serviceable there.
And there is the just watching what's in front of you. I mean, there is a lot to learn. Obviously, when you have Denzel Ward, when you have Greg Newsome, when you have Martin Emerson, when you have Grant Talbot, when you have Juan Thornhill, when you have a guy like Rodney McLeod, these guys right now, the job is, when you get the opportunity, perform, but otherwise just sit around, be a sponge, and take up and learn what you can. And we all know that your time will come. And as far as the first Ronnie Hickman interception, come on, Browns fans. Who we kidding? How many times have we seen that either dropped or off a guy's helmet and ended up in the end zone and the opposing team's player? So, Ronnie Hickman, congrats. Obviously, way to ingratiate yourself to the Cleveland faithful in your first appearance. Last segment, coming here, we're going to get some thoughts from John. Now we got this 2023 car on the road, where he thinks it's possibly going. Your latest Locked On Browns. Make sure everybody subscribes to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, please, and thank you. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, take all the Elijah Moore ones you can, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Your latest Locked On Browns, PFF's John Kosko in the house. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen. Locked On Browns, always available, always free wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, the YouTube channel. Come on, join the everyday crowd. Make sure you subscribe. John, we're starting to get to see it now. And in the beginning, we saw the offense putting together some good days. And now you're starting to see the defense within practices starting to catch up a little bit. We're seeing some really, really great matchups. The Elijah Moore, Denzel Ward matchups have been really, really some good things to watch here. And the thing that's so crazy about all this, John, is we talk about all this on the offensive side of the ball, the skill guys, the quarterbacks, Nick Chubb. It's not even a name we're even talking about right now. So, I go on other shows and they're like, well, Elijah Moore can do this. You can't sleep on Amari Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones, good vertical threat. You can't sleep there. David Njoku. Oh, and then the one guy you can't let beat you in Nick Chubb. John, this product really looks like it's coming together. And if I got to do one more sit down on another show or read one more piece where it says, everything the Browns have done to this point looks phenomenal, but it never works out, so they'll stink.
Yeah, so I wrote an article for PFF. It came out a couple days ago that I'm bullish on the Browns this year, and I probably say that every single year. I know I say that every single year because
I know I do, but this year I truly believe it.
but the thing is too is they accumulate talent, right? And it really kind of falls on the quarterback's shoulders when it comes to the NFL, right?
Yes.
You talk about 2020, Baker Mayfield looked like he was gonna be the guy. And you take his last half of that season and you extend it into 2021, you're thinking this with that talent that they had in that team. I mean, there's literally everybody that you talk to thought that the Browns were going to be Super Bowl contenders that year as long as Baker Mayfield could do what he did in 2020. We know what Baker Mayfield did in 2021. So, and then the next year, obviously last year they made the move to get Deshaun Watson. You're kind of sitting at a lame duck quarterback situation. Jacoby Brissett, kudos to him. He did as best as he possibly could. Lost you games in a handful of, those games where in the fourth quarter he struggled. I think it was the Falcons. He struggled. The Jets. He didn't perform well. The Chargers. He didn't perform well. All games that they should have won. And if you win those games, you're looking into the playoffs at that point. And Deshaun Watson didn't play well, obviously down the stretch. If he's back to his 2018, 2019 form, which is not at the astronomical level that he was in 2020, that's going to be a playoff contender.
More than good enough. Yep.
Way more than good enough. He's a guy that was a top 5 in EPA per play, expected points added per play, in those years. And then I just think that he's surrounded by arguably the best talent that he's been around. Obviously he had this DeAndre Hopkins, who's a stud like that. Like, I'm not going to take that away from like the talent that he had, but Amari Cooper is a great wide receiver. If Elijah Moore can translate what he's been doing in this preseason and training camp to the field in the regular season, like that is a 1-2 punch that's going to be like pay off dividends, because Elijah Moore has that explosive ability. And they, you think about what we talked about with how Kevin Stefanski wants to deploy Elijah Moore. That's kind of like the Percy Harvin like vision that he has for him, and he's a better route runner and receiver than Percy Harvin. Percy Harvin is just like phenomenal with the ball in his hands. So you just try to get the ball in his hands in any way you could. And so like, you can do more things, like more wide receiver things with Elijah Moore. So yeah, I mean, if Deshaun Watson plays at like his sophomore and second and third year form, like the Browns are going to be contending in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, and and the thing I like is that it seems like everything's starting to pick up at the right time. We always talk about defenses are slow. The Browns you can't afford this. You can't. You're going through a gauntlet. 5 games in the first 6 weeks. With obviously Cincinnati, with Pittsburgh, of course, Tennessee, then Baltimore, then the bye week. And if any team will expose any weakness you have, it is the San Francisco 49ers. They will take their will. This team needs to continue this upward trend for the next couple of weeks, because they really have to hit the ground running.
Yeah, the schedule is arguably the hardest in the NFL to start the season. I mean, the opener is brutal against Joe Burrow and company.
Luckily, it's at home where he never plays well.
This is true, but
it's still Joe Burrow.
It's still Joe Burrow and that talent, right? Like it's a game that I would probably just pencil as a loss. Like, I'm looking at it because I think that that team is just that good, and they're melding together, with what they've had for a number of years. Obviously, the one thing would be is if his calf isn't healthy by then. I would assume it's going to be, but I think though that the Browns, they're going to compete with the Bengals for the division title. I know that obviously the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and people are super bullish on the Steelers and stuff like that, and Kenny Pickett in his second year, but let's kind of like wait, let's see how that plays out. Like, I like obviously they have talent on their teams as well, but I don't think that Lamar in that system I don't think it's the great fit that people are kind of making it out to be. We'll see. And then Kenny Pickett, like, I need to see it. I need to see it. Like, he showed good play down the stretch last year, but he really did struggle as a rookie for good stretches of last year. So I think though that you've got to hit the ground running, like you said, and because if you have these games where it's like the offense is clicking one day and the defense is not, and then vice versa, you've got to hit that ground running to get yourself into position after those first 5 games to be potentially a front runner for the division.
The thing with the Ravens that kind of gets on my nerves is it's Odell. The talk about the Ravens and their offense should be Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. That is what the talk should be about the Ravens and their offense. And can they all get it done with Lamar Jackson? And we'll see. It's a big transition. And there could also be the factor of Lamar just saying, hey, look, I've always done it myself anyway, guys. You can do what you got to do, because if the pocket breaks down, I'm going to run for the hills.
And that's not winning football. Like, he can't keep doing, like, you've seen it.
It's not it's not sustainable football.
He's gotten hurt 2 years in a row, and it's cost them the season essentially. When he plays and he's healthy, that team is good, obviously. But you have the best ability is availability, and 2 years in a row now he's let his team down in that regard. So it's I think and this is a different scheme for him. Like, that was it's a completely different scheme now with Todd Monken being their offensive coordinator. It's going to be a much more vertical play. And like, if people are talking about Odell Beckham Jr. for them, it's like the dude hasn't played in over a year and a half. So
no. We're only allowed to use those reservations for Deshaun Watson, who was not injured while he was away from football. That's the only way it's supposed to work here, John. You know the way this goes.
That's true. This is true.
He is John Kosko. Obviously, John has been a part of the show here for many, many years. I love our football conversations. Some of our best conversations, though, are just about, two dads managing wives and kids. And that's what we do. But, John will, of course, always be a fixture here. And, we'll bring John. We'll get him in here regularly. But, we got to have ball to talk about. We can't just filth, flooring, and we got to have ball to talk about if I'm going to waste
right.
John Kosko's time and take him away from his family to bring him here. Make sure you're following at John Kosko 3. Of course, part of the PFF family. They all do a fantastic job over there. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here now. This is 7 seasons. 7 seasons. Yes, I signed up for 0-16 kids, but I love you all. And we're going to hopefully this will be the best one yet. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go, Browns.